Hello, everyone. Welcome to this very, very special first session of Gulf Business Talks. Gulf Business Talks is an audio-video discussion that we're having on topics that are very relevant to this region. And we wanted to start off with a topic that's very, very pertinent right now, hospitality. The hospitality industry has been hit extremely hard by the pandemic. Hotels closed across the world because of enforced lockdowns. Travel tourism basically crashed. Now, the good news, I think we should start with the good news right now. The reopening has already started across the world. It's been a bit slow and gradual, but the reopening has started. But now we have a new set of requirements. So we have social distancing, we have other precautionary measures, whether that means wearing masks in some part of the world, in this region as well. So what is the outlook for the future? Now, to understand more on that and the way ahead for the industry, we are joined by a very, very esteemed panel of experts today. Let me introduce them to you. We have with us Kevork, Deldelian, the CEO of Millennium Hotels and Resorts, Middle East and Africa. We have David Allan. He is the Cluster General Manager at Radisson's Hotels Group. Then we also have with us, all the way from Germany, Cyrus Heydarian. He's the General Manager of Breidenbacher Hotel in Doosseldorf. I hope I got that right. Then we have with us Bruno Trenchard. He's the Senior Manager, Strategic Advisory, Hotels and Hospitality at CBRE. We have with us also Jacqueline Campbell. She's the Managing Director of the Travel Collection. And we also have with us Michael Lee. He's the Client Relationship Director at research company MavenMagnet. I'm Aarti Nagraj, Editor of Gulf Business, and I'll be moderating the discussion today. A big welcome to all of our panelists. And before we get started, just a quick discussion, a reminder of all the facilities we have. Now, during the session, any questions you have, attendees, feel free to send across your questions. You can type them in the chat option. We have time for a brief Q&A at the end. This will be your questions directly you can ask the panelists. Just raise your hand virtually and we'll unmute you and you can ask them. The session is also being streamed live on Facebook. So let's say after the discussion, in case there isn't time, we will have your comments on Facebook that we can share with the panelists. And yeah, please follow us on social media at Gulf Business on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and at Gulf Business Magazine on Instagram. So I know we have an amazing panel, so I'm not going to waste more time on this. Let's start off. The very, very basic first question. What is the current state of the regional hospitality industry? Where do we stand right now? Bruno, if I can start with you.
Yes, sure. Look, at the moment, it's not such a rosy picture, I would say, because as you mentioned, the travel market had a lot of restrictions recently. So there's very low occupancy rates at most of the hotels in the region. A lot of them are closed, and rates, ADRs are low as well. But we're probably at the bottom of the event, I would say, or I would hope at least. And we've started to see some markets or some properties or a few businesses here and there that start to find a way around things. But roughly speaking, we have very low rates in the region, like you've seen across the world everywhere. As a result of the travel ban. Basically, if you can't travel, you don't need to stay at a hotel. It's fairly as simple as that, but it's quite sad for the industry right now.
So this is an established fact, I think, like you said. So how are industry players expected to cope with this situation right now? What is the way ahead? How should they adjust? Should they be modifying operations? Can they do anything at this point? Kevork, if you can shed some light on that.
Sure. Basically, I think we just went through 3 different phases in a very, very short period of time. So shock, denial, and acceptance. This is most probably one of the fastest phases I've seen in my career in the hospitality industry when we talk about recovery from crisis. Actually, we are in acceptance, which means we are in the mode of setting forward solutions, and that's good news. The three phases, again, we have seen a lot of people going through them a bit differently. So while we are all in an acceptance level today, we have seen people recovering faster. So people basically spending less time in shock and denial, but acted on things. So I think we are in a good situation today. So when I'm asked by my owners, by my hotels where I operate, what do you think, how do you feel? I say now it's clear. So while maybe it's not clear when COVID is going away, there is no date for that, but it's clear. The path as a hotel operator for me is clear, and I think all my colleagues within the industry are at that situation today. How to cope with it beyond the emotional factor is to get hands dirty and get into the job and get things done. Now, the industry has been over the past few years, I would say 10, 15 years, have not seen any evolution. So we are one of the industries that did not go through a proper evolution like any other industry. We've been repeating ourselves, and all we brought into the industry is new ideas that have been pumped and pushed to us by third-party service providers. We think an IT is great, we put it in, and we move accordingly. I think it's time for us now, and COVID-19 provided a big opportunity and a wake-up call for us to revisit everything we have been doing in the past. We had a lot that crept under our skin, and we have let it go. I think now is the time for the industry people in different communities. Community leadership has to go back and review everything they have been doing so far and drive towards the new era of hotel industry. Whereas the hotel staff, people who work in hotels, I think it's also a wake-up call for them to individually look at their careers and see if this is the right direction for their careers, if what they have been doing with institutions such as international companies is the right thing for their future careers, or is it always on the edge and they are the first to be hit when a crisis comes.
But is there a clear solution in a sense right now? Like even if that you acknowledge you're in that stage of acknowledging the situation, but we still don't have tourists walking in through the doors. So on a very operational level, how do you adjust?
Well, I think different companies would answer that question on different scales. Some already adjusted 3 years back, 4 years back. They did not wait for this crisis. Meaning, when we look at our expenses and our processes 3 years back within my group, we went through something called the elimination process. So we eliminated a lot of our good old processes that were actually never delivered with an objective. The objective is there to deliver something better to the client, but did the client want that or he did not want it? Nobody looked at that. So I think we went through all that. And my advice to people within the industry is now the time to go line by line, step by step, every procedure, and take whatever is not in the best interest of the client, and the client does not want it out of the way. Now, the other element is the human element. There is solution for that human element. One of the things we have been doing in this industry is undermine the intelligence of people. Now, unfortunately, I may be one of the loud speakers about it, and not all my colleagues like me saying that. Basically, we recommend people in positions and we give them job descriptions and we say, this is your job from A to Z, and that's what you do. So you do nothing in life in a hotel other than that. And some of our very smart and highly intelligent ladies and gentlemen operate in our hotels within that structure that we define for them as hoteliers. That's the worst approach towards undermining human intelligence. I've been practicing a different approach on my career, and today I'm lucky to be in a leadership spot where I've been dealing with my teams on a change, and we have been making that change. So we stepped away from this approach and we said, let's look at the individual and see what is the talent there and what can that individual do and what is his passion. And you would be surprised that we run hotels with a very small margin of staff to rooms, and we have one of the best reputations on the street when it comes to guest experience. So it eliminated the human element in terms of head count, but it brought in a smart, intelligent individual who was respected for his intelligence, and he was given the opportunity to build a career and move forward rather than 8 years. I worked with people in the good old days. They used to tell me you have to work for 40 years in a hotel to become a general manager. That mentality has to go. And whoever acted on it today did not have to put people out of jobs, not too many. This industry always hits people first. So wherever we have a crisis, if it's an individual hotel or a fire case, or if it is citywide or countrywide or region-wide, people are the first people to pay the price. And the only fact that brings out clearly is that we are fat on headcount in our operations. So that's the first thing we can get rid of. And it does not affect the future of that establishment. It comes back, we recruit again, and we move forward. So that fact is established, and we have too many people working in our industry. That's why we are very low payers. That's why people have to struggle years and years to grow with their careers and reach to a point where they are proud. So that action has to happen. Costs have to happen today. Cost management has to take place. And there is a lot of nonsense in there, with all respect to my terminology here. We have been spending a lot of money on things that owners have been paying for it only because it's a stamp, or it's something that is a copy-paste approach towards a brand. So I think we in the industry, brand owners, have to go back and look at our books again and stay away from just following a brand guideline blindly against the best interest of the investor. The other element is all those licenses and all those things that we have been doing, and giving maintenance contracts to companies where we had the talent sitting and still paid for in our institutions, rather than develop the talent to be able to take care of a particular unit in our hotels. All we did is we just took the easy solution way out and extended the contract. So if today the industry moves fast at reviewing all this, I think we have stand a better chance to be fitter to start with, live with lower rates, and still make returns to our owners, and still pay the bills and pay our investors what they are due towards their investment, and provide a very good, high-end quality, intelligent quality service to our clients. COVID is bad news. For this industry, COVID is not good news. So I'm not. It is a big slap for us to go back and look at our industry again, and redefine what a word called luxury is, and what really brings luxury to a client rather than what we have been practicing.
David, can I pull you in, and what do you think is the way ahead? Is this the right way for the industry to re-look at everything, basically, in a sense?
To a certain extent, Kevork, that was a particularly comprehensive answer. So you've not left me a lot of room to work with, but I'll do my best to come up with a couple other points as well. First of all, look, I would go back and say I very much agree with the sentiment that this is the biggest impact on particularly hospitality, but many industries within a lifetime or within a couple of generations. And I can speak from a general manager's point of view, and no matter what happens when we've had global crashes, or we've had situations in one country, or there's been some element of travel restrictions going on, I've been a general manager for longer than I care to remember, and I could always say to my wife or whatever, or my parents, and say, don't worry, whatever happens, they're always going to need a general manager. This is the first time that I've ever actually questioned that particular sentiment and what's going on. I said, never take an area job, just leave, stay close to where the cash is, always be a general manager. And I think very much in line with what Kevork said, then there has to be a shift in that regard, because this is simply proving the fact that maybe you don't always need to have that particular type of structure in there. And that's a very long-winded way of putting it. The only other thing I can add just now is, because there are so many questions that it's frankly an impossibility for us to answer. We can surmise, we can make significant assumptions at the moment. None of us have been through a pandemic or a crisis like this before. Mercifully, let's hope we never have to go through one again. All we can do as hoteliers, or indeed anyone in business, and more importantly, anyone in life, is continue to act with a strong element of transparency, and be as transparent as we possibly can. So, because there's nothing wrong at all if you say, I'm going to change this standard, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. There is nothing wrong in the world with saying, I do not know the answer to that. Please give me a little bit of time. Come back and ask me in a week or 2 weeks. I cannot give you an accurate number on that just now, because the only thing, to go back to Kevork's point, we can do accurately is cut costs. And yes, of course we have to do that, but it's a very short-term measure. Short-term.
But would you then say that layoffs, we are already seeing a lot of layoffs, so isn't that going to happen? I mean, is that happening or not?
Who's making layoffs? Which companies are making layoffs?
A lot of hotels, hospitality companies. I'm sure Bruno will. Bruno, any thoughts on whether hospitality companies are laying off people? The research expert can weigh in here.
I think every hotel at some point might have to look at costs, and a big part of the cost is payroll. So I don't think it's surprising that most of the hotels have been putting staff on unpaid leave, or potentially in the future will start laying off some of their staff members at least. Not all of them, obviously, but some of them, yeah.
The difficulty with that just now is, if I get allowed to comment, yes, of course people are making layoffs. I was being rather presumptuous or rather difficult with that particular point, but we don't know how many layoffs to make in the meantime. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to project, and it goes back to this transparency thing, and say, look, of course we're doing something, we've done this very, very short term, that's minimal. You can either go in and take a whole tranche out, or you go back in, very much as Kevork suggested, look at how you're running your operation and say, how do I make my operation run better? And that doesn't necessarily mean making people redundant or getting rid of people. It's very much a point of fitting the roles that you have in a hotel around the people, rather than trying to fit people into a predetermined role. And I think, again, to what Kevork said, the industry will continue to move in that direction. For how long? I don't know the answer to that quite yet. But once I find out, I'll let you know.
Well, if I may complement that, we do have followed very simple and clear 4 objectives, no matter if we are having good times or if we're having bad times. So, and the 4 main objectives are, first of all, keep the existing customer and do whatever is necessary to focus on your existing and your well-known database to really get them back, first of all. Second is to find new customers, which we all have a lot of spendings in, but we have promoters in the first objective, which actually help us to evolve with the second objective. The third objective we have been talking about, certainly not yet, is to optimize spendings. We just started to have customers here, so we target them and we see how we can manage to have them spend more money. And we do not want to crucify our ADR, because we are actually providing service. And what is our main product? It is service. It's not selling a bed or a Wiener Schnitzel or whatever. We're selling service. That is our main product. And number 4, we have been talking about, that's one of the main targets, which actually becomes a little bit more prioritized in these times when we face such challenges, is to increase our efficiencies, of course. And this is what David and Bruno and Kevork have been talking about. And these 4 simple principles and main objectives we always put on target every day. So in everything we do, we take these 4 objectives, and from that, we cut down whatever needs to be cut. But the main thing for us is not to cut the experience of the customer when it comes to cost cutting. And that is the balance we needed to go in 2008 again, but I'm sure I'm going to talk about that later with another question.
The interesting thing is, you know, all of you are aligned on the fact that I think the industry is going to see or is seeing big changes already. So what should you be doing right now in terms of efficiency? That word came up a lot. How can you manage efficiency? One, we don't want to, my understanding is we don't want to touch the workforce as well. We want to keep them protected. We want to still offer the best service. And we are right now, unfortunately, in a situation where you don't have the levels of occupancy, you know, anywhere close to what you would want. We are not yet sure when we'll reach those kind of occupancy levels as well. So right now, what are hoteliers supposed to be doing to just manage the situation? I'll probably ask Jacqueline to jump in. I know that's a big question.
That is a big question. I think at the end of the day, I'm going to second, I mean, I'm more from the sales side, but it's very much second to what Cyrus and David and has all said as well, is at the end of the day, we've got to look at it also from the customer's point of view. So as hotel partners, we can cut and change, but it's also very much what the customer wants. And when a customer expects a certain level of service, whatever the brand are they going to, regardless whether we've had COVID or not had COVID, they're expecting that same level. So I do believe very much that the experiences that we have to offer may change, but we still need to keep within our own brand values, what we've built and what we spent. I mean, a lot of us in our different brands have all spent a lot on building it. We have to retain it. I agree with Kevork and Cyrus and David. We'll have to change and manipulate what people's expectations are. You know, I think people are looking for a little bit more privacy. So it may be that we may have to offer different things within the expectations that COVID has put us in as well. But that does not necessarily mean that we have to change the level of service that we have been known or been built as well. So I think, you know, in many ways, there's going to be changes, and we all have to accept, as Kevork said, we've all got to accept that technology is to become our new best friend. We used to think it was our best friend before. Years and years ago, Wi-Fi was thinking that it's a norm now, and everything's going to be on apps or on tablets. So the way we change as to balance what the customer wants and what as a hotelier is spending, and that has to come into some sort of a line together without losing some of our values that we've put into the brands as well.
If I could just come in on that as well, forgive me. That's exactly correct. A hotel, as a very specific example, is going to be a different place in 6 weeks now than it was 3 months ago. With, forced by hygiene practices having changed, local legislation having changed, with social distancing, with the way we serve food and beverage, with the way we interact with each other, with the technological element that Jacqueline referred to as well. And there's a huge push within the industry, which I understand to an extent, to say safety is the biggest thing for the next 6 months. Safety, we've got the cleanest hotel, we've got killed 99.99% of all germs and bacteria in our hotel. And yes, I don't mean to make light of that, because of course it's an incredibly important point, but with people slowly return, it goes back to what everyone has said so far. They will pay for the experience along with that sense of security. So you cannot have it as a mortuary slab, dull, grey, zero interaction, because that will not bring people back. People's disposable income is going to be under pressure for at least another 24 months. Unless some miracle pops along from somewhere. So they are going to think really carefully before they fork out on any kind of spending, whether it be a luxury hotel, a budget hotel, a 4-star, a 5-star, a resort. This is all going to, the experience coupled with that. And I think there are a couple of major hotel companies in the world that are focusing far too much on the safety and security element and forgetting that what successful hotels do best, and that's hosting guests, with everything else, every piece of legislation, every guideline going along hand in hand with that. Sorry, forgive me for interrupting.
No, but if I can actually come back, just to play devil's advocate, but isn't that right now with all the misinformation that's there around, that is there on people's mind, right? That safety element is still a big factor. I don't, even if I think about traveling, which I may not be able to do right now, but my first question is it clean? Is it safe? You know, do they have, and the more I see of, even if it's just marketing that, oh, you know, I have a filter that removes 100% or 99.9%, isn't that going to be the most attractive thing to me right now?
No, I think it's a combination of both. And we have our own safety protocol. The Radisson Hotel Group has been, to do my company line, has been very, very far ahead of this. We are teamed up with SGS. We've teamed up with WTTC. It's all going to be linked together. So look, it's a very strong for us. And when we're going for any kind of corporate business, say larger group business, that is incredibly important. It's not to diminish that, but it's also not to make the assumption that when we get even towards July, August, September time, the first people that are travelling are either travelling through necessity, and then they'll be thinking very much about the safety and security of it. The other people that are travelling at that time give less than two hoots about the safety and security element. They're desperate to get back out. They say, I will not let my life be run by this. Whether that's our opinion on it, it's immaterial in the whole thing. So we have to cater to both groups over the coming years, I would suggest.
And I agree with wholeheartedly. If, you know, the customers already, you know, from my point of view, we're already starting to see inquiries globally wanting to travel because people have been missing that experience. They've been in a smaller environment, in a home environment, and are looking. And yes, they are expecting that when they get to the hotels of whatever brand, as David said, we've all had enough of knowing we have to wear the masks and the gloves and this and that. We're expecting it when we get there. So we are now looking for an experience. We want to be seeing the outdoor life. We want to be seeing the countryside. We want to say, so we want to go back and have those experiences that we haven't had from a time. So as from a hotel point of view, it's balancing that, but from the expectation, the customer is taking on the fact that they've chosen somewhere that they know. They've been reading so much, they've been getting reams and reams from hotel partners of this page and this cemetery and this and to such and such standards and with this hospital. So now they're looking for experiences and they want to have something a bit more different, but they know they might have to change slightly. But it's all about that experience, about somebody welcoming them and saying, welcome back, as Cyrus said, you know, earlier, or something else that they had. It's all about these experiences.
Sorry, Michael, I know you were, we'll come back, Cyrus. Sorry, just a minute,
Sorry, well, there is one major incident we all in this round experienced almost 20 years ago, which is very much comparable to COVID-19 because 9/11 in 2001 actually showed us that the whole travel industry from one moment to the next changed, and all the restrictions, if we look at it, are still in place. And that is something we have to have on our minds when we go out and plan for all the different measurements, services, standards, procedures. There will be a trillion things, I would say, which we have to monitor and which will be in place. After SARS in 2003, 17 years ago, people are still running around with masks before we had COVID-19. So, and that will change also our industry, certainly. But there is, as I said, a clear guidance if we look in the inner core of our main product, what we need to follow. And we need to do one thing. We need to listen to our customer and not think that we know better and serve anything, but we don't know whether that is the right thing. We have to have a clear communication with our customers and study them much better than we did before. Because we think, yes, everyone wants to be safe and healthy and wants to be, you know, disinfect and this, but we have to have a very clear communication and study them. And then we see how our service process and product will be changing.
I think, Michael can probably give us some insight on what is it that people are looking for. I think, like Cyrus mentioned, a lot of it is what we expect people are looking for, but what is it that people are looking for?
Well, I think Cyrus makes a good point. I mean, 9/11, it took the industry 5 years to recover. It's estimated 18 months after the 2008 financial crisis. And I think that, you know, it's universally accepted, and the president of WTTC has talked about this, a more coordinated approach is needed among government on protocols. I mean, even now, you know, you all travel a lot. Some airports you take your shoes off, some you don't. Some you have to take your laptops off, some you don't. So there's no common protocol in place. And I think that's going to be needed this time around with this size of this crisis. You know, 300 million people work in tourism around the world. It's a $2.7 trillion business. It's 10% of the global GDP. And I think that maybe the G20 could help. Us be some talk about that. To the point that it might have been David or somebody was speaking about the clean taglines. I've estimated there's 12 to 20 clean taglines at the moment. We clean, we care, we welcome. Clean stay, commitment to clean, we care clean, safe and clean, clean promise, lead with care, okay? Now, let's look at another statistic. 17 million international overnight visitors in 2019 in Dubai, over 100,000 hotel rooms, 25,000 plus apartment residences, and $30 billion of room night revenue. Dubai's main countries of origin for tourists: India, KSA, UK, China, Oman, Russia, USA, Germany. I don't need to tell you guys, you know all this. But it poses the question, which nations of tourists might rebound first and why? Understanding, I think, what the issues are, what do consumer sentiments look like? What are potential travelers looking for? Are they going to get so hooked up on the whole clean thing? They will for a while, but what else? What's going to be important? Are the pools open? What's the situation with barbecues and buffets and beaches and bars? Some of the speakers have talked about trust, which I think is going to be very important. Trust, branding, good experience. But I'm getting emails regularly from the hotel chains that I'm in their loyalty program, and it's all really kind of saying the same thing. But I think another point too, the protocols at point of origin has been talked about, which I think is going to be very key. But let's face it, perception is reality. And I'm convinced of one thing, that, you know, none of us in the public or the private sectors and the travel and hospitality industry can just, you know, rely on hunches. This is a time for concrete insights and analysis, and delivered at speed. And I think the industry could work very quickly. I know we at MavenMagnet are, you know, working with Gulf Business to see how we could help in that point, because, you know, we could put together very quickly, you know, based on our research protocols, actionable insights, so that we don't need to guess what the consumer's thinking. If we had 20,000 points of view about motivation for travel, and I think you could speculate that tourism will come back faster than business travel, for instance, but let's find out. I think with business travel, corporations, cutbacks and so on are going to be in place for a very, very long time. So I think that other things to think about is, what is the travel industry competing against? Is it school fees? Is it a new car? Is it moving house? There's a lot of other factors now, and this is a game changer. I mean, you know, with 40 million unemployed in the United States and huge unemployment in other parts of the world. So there's a lot of issues here, and I think it would be a very sensible move. Clearly, the hospitality industry works very closely together, but to really set on a path to get some actionable insights. And these can be monitored to track consumer perceptions as the months pass. We can look back and compare what consumer perceptions were before COVID-19. So there's a lot of opportunity to work here.
So I'm just taking up a couple of questions that have come up. One's come from Alistair Murray. He says, what are the authorities and airlines actually doing now to permit flying again? Even current residents can't return to the UAE at present, never mind starting to get some tourists in, which I think is a valid point. So when you don't have tourists coming in at this point, that can be a big problem. And I think there's a second question, which is kind of related. It says, looking across the region, do you see the various governments reacting in the interest of tourism? So what do you think? Do you think that this, the recovery will depend a large part on what authorities do, governments worldwide? Kevork, maybe?
Yes, please. Basically, through our interactions with the different government authorities in all the different regions we work with, there is, within the MEA, there is a clear consensus from the authorities to drive towards establishing a reputation of why safety is key today, but to go beyond that and bring out loud saying we are a safe environment and we still have a lot to offer. And we have been seeing a lot of that happening in every single government institution we have been dealing with. Now, we're talking about Dubai. If you see how DCM is today, actually the marketing destination of Dubai is unbelievable. So you don't feel like you are in a COVID period. You're witnessing a machine that is driving with full force to market the destination. and to be the first choice. So I think that is the vision where they want to drive it, is to be the first destination of choice whenever you really start making that decision to travel to start with, and then you were looking for a location. So all that is there, and I can see how that is working very closely hand in hand with health authorities. So actually, this is not a kind of separate entities working in this action, but that level of reassurance and confirmation of the safetiness of the environment is being endorsed by the correct medical and health authorities that are hand in hand working with the travel and tourism departments to bring in a clear message out to the world and say, yes, the flights are there, why don't you fly in? Now, when is also a very, very important question. Nevertheless, I think the answer today to when is very simple. We're working day in, day out towards making that when the closest date possible. So there's a lot to be done before that date is in place. So even if in Dubai, here in the city, the destination is ready to accept people, but remember very much what Michael was saying, you've got feeder markets. What are they doing? What happens at their airports? Is there a very clear protocol in place that we say, fine, that protocol is implemented and that is safe? Would the cases arising in some of those destinations that are feeder markets to this particular destination, are those still alarming and high? Then most probably that won't open. So the drive of all the different governments within the region is towards really securing that reputation and mindset towards tourism. Remember, if you can get leisure, corporate secure. Corporate has to fly because corporate has a business. So corporate always takes a bit of a when, you know, I know I haven't been flying for the past 3 months, and just before COVID, I assure you, out of every 3 flights, I come back sick. So, and there was no COVID those days. So I started to take some whatever I have to take to support my immune system. But I had to travel. I had to go to my clients. I had to go to see my owners. I had to go to my partners. So if leisure flies at any point in time with comfort, corporate is secure. Corporate is not going to pull back. The immediate corporate damage we expect is going to come only from budgetary aspects. So I think a lot of corporate establishments will pull out today in the coming months or so, I mean, probably maybe a year or so. And that will be not because of the necessity and non-necessity, but because of really financial challenges that everybody is going through today that is going to go forward with us for another period of time. But I tell you, I look this morning, somebody shared with me a video on one of the streets in Italy. Yeah. And it's a two-line restaurants in that street. Packed. I could count maybe out of the hundreds, maybe two masks packed. So that's the same human being who's traveling. That's the same client from Italy when it comes to us from that destination. That's the same client. So if we're worried about safety and that is going to stop him from flying, I think that's an extreme. I don't think that extreme we should worry about really.
Bruno, what is your take? Do you think governments are going to will have to play a bigger role in protecting tourism, the hospitality industry itself?
Yeah, I think governments will have an instrumental role. We've been talking about safety and hygiene since the beginning. I think my big take on that is what matters is actually the perception that guests have of safety. No guest will come and do tests on how clean the floor is. Like you don't have the capacity to do this yourself. So it's how you perceive that the hotel is making you safe. That's at a hotel level. But you can do this for a destination as well. And that's what we see in terms of security. Some governments are very good at marketing their destination as a safe destination. So why would they not be able to market their destination as healthy destination? And I think Dubai has been very good, for instance, in terms of how they market the destination, how they promote it, what they put forward in terms of a key message for the tourists. So I'm pretty confident that they will be able to do a good job looking at what they've done in the past, that they've been really good at that. So it's really giving the perception that Dubai has done a lot, they've tested a lot, they test a lot of the staff at the hotels, all of this that you can communicate to the guests to make them feel safe and remove this this fear of traveling. So I think, yes, government will have a big role to play.
Sorry, Aarti, I was going to say, just moving a bit more, expanding from that, I think as well the consumer, going back to what the consumer is, I think the consumer already is also looking at destinations and countries where they felt that the governments have played a role in safety. So they're looking at destinations because they want to start traveling. Where should we go? It may be different this year. Where do I know that it's not quite a big city, or they've controlled it well and they haven't? So I think that, as well as the perception, what we've been seeing in the news, the media, whichever way, social media, whichever platform you want to use. But I think that's a very important thing as well, is that where they'll go, which countries handled it well, and which I think the governments or the leaders in this region are also looking at that, so where they can open up and say, right, residents from the GCC region, you can go to Germany, or you can go to Sri Lanka, or you can go to Maldives, or wherever it is, Malaysia, wherever we want to go to. So I think they're also working in tandem, that it's also the various countries around the world globally, we are matching with each other as well. So that also plays a perception as well.
There's a question that's come up. I think, Kevork, this relates to what you were talking about, the feeder countries as well. So the question is, in the recovery phase, what do you think will be the top origin countries of tourists in this region? So is that going to change, in your opinion?
Well, destinations will not change on the long term. On the short term, yes, we're going to see most probably a little bit more of GCC and Middle East percentage of travelers increasing towards the GCC itself. Domestic travel is the first market that is opening up.
Right.
And in a mindset of GCC, all the GCC is domestic travel. So if you'd ask me really what's the difference between an airport in Riyadh and an airport in Dubai, in terms of the relationship, it's like having two airports in a city with 40 million population. So within the GCC, I think a lot of work, which links to the earlier point we were discussing about, a lot of work has been done by governments to show and does display the level of action and reaction to the COVID situation and how safe the cities are becoming. I think within that grouping, once the governments come to a consensus that they are comfortable to fly, I would even see them flying like you going interstate, there's no reason for it to stop. And because they are going to be reluctant to fly globally, worldwide, into the destinations, I think it's going to be very much the #1 destination, and these are the countries in GCC. Now, again, destination and service provider is very important. So, for example, while some people are going to be looking for quiet, less crowded places, if we're talking about the hotels or a country that is a religious attraction, it has its market, its business is based on the religious travel market. Among the communities that are very much asked about the first destination that they would go to after COVID, the moment they can fly, we have seen statistics that says 43% or 44% of the people who are willing to fly are saying the first destination will be a religious destination. So now you're talking about a different feeder market. Now this is no more a feeder market. So if we talk about Makkah, Medina in Saudi, the feeder market is from GCC, but all those big feeder markets are ready to fly. So once the comfort is there, once the authorities have the right setup, they believe they can accommodate people. People are willing to come, and that is, we just saw a report a few days back, which is positively alarming. So if you see the percentages, you wouldn't expect that if you and this is, I think, coming back to Michael's point, where I 100% agree with him. We need to understand those markets that want to come to our destination. What do they want? Can we be ready for them? If we don't understand that, we might misjudge and have wrong decisions made. So I think it is a bonding. The more that bonding happens among those governments and those protocols are put in place to be respected among them, These are going to become each other's destinations.
Talking about, there's another question from Andrew, which says, how will your messaging strategy change regarding retention of existing customers and finding new customers? And I think that's particularly relevant when you're talking about a changed audience and changed customer base, so to speak. So how would your messaging strategy be? David, do you want to take that up?
Sorry to give anything but a wholly definitive answer, but it depends very much on how the markets open up. So we can't say I can rely on all my customers coming back because maybe all of your customers are domestic, or I need to go for a completely new customer base, because you then don't necessarily know where to target the customer base from. It goes back to, as beautifully put as Michael did it earlier on, it goes back to having clear information and some clarity on the data as to, right, we're pretty sure this is how it's going to start, and then we build a message thereafter. The brand experience, the brand safety and security for those international companies, you have that backing you up. But it's a very difficult thing to say at the moment that this is what my messaging is going to be right now.
Jacqueline, anything that you want to add to that?
I'm just going to say, I think the message might change as the months and the time goes on. You know, I'm not saying you change your message now may be different by the time we get to December.
Sure.
Because the consumer has also changed, their mindset has changed. We've got, as Michael, I think Bruno also mentioned as well, we've got more used to it. So that safety element is not the one anymore. We're not worrying about the cleanliness anymore. We're now worrying about the experience, or we're looking for the value, or we're looking for the countryside, because we've been the temperatures here at 50 or 40 degrees Celsius. We now want fresh air and greenery and water flowing. So that's all going to change. So I think this, in sort of echo to what David says, you cannot, nothing, and I agree with all my fellow colleagues here today, nothing's stagnant. We've got to keep moving the whole time, and our messages and what we're offering, what the consumer wants now, Michael, I'm sure you'll agree, will be different in 4 months' time.
More than likely.
Maybe would that be 2 weeks as well, Michael? As short as 2 weeks?
Well, I think it's going to depend. You know, all of you know your customer base very well, and you know that customers from different parts of the world have different opinions and points of view about all of these topics. But one thing I just like to throw out is, this is a sort of an opening, and I'll let the Gulf business and Motivate commercial team take over. But I think, you know, it seems to me that it would be great to have a unified working group to develop the outline of some kind of research project to really understand a lot. You know, we can define geography, we can look at demos, questions that need answering. And the research that we do, there's often a great discovery component in it, which means that, to put it simply, you know, we give answers to questions that haven't been asked. And the beauty of the way MavenMagnet conducts its research, we don't have respondent bias. We're not asking questionnaires. We gather anything that's got a digital footprint, a blog post, a forum, social media, newspaper articles, anything. So we can gather that very, very quickly. Chat rooms, product reviews. So there's no respondent bias. We've got a larger sample size. We can work in local languages as well, fully GDPR compliant. I know this is a sales pitch, but you know, I'm a traveler. I've been traveling around the world for God knows how long, 45 years. And I think that clearly the information is going to change, but we can track that. And we turn around projects within a month. So, you know, as you're beginning to see levels of activity now with reservations and interest and so on, this would be a great opportunity to have the industry working together. I think governments are going to be important, though. You know, British Airways require face masks. Some airlines might not. So there's going to be a lot of difference going on. But it's clearly, you know, your business extremely well, but we are still hurtling into the unknown. And I think that getting some actionable insights and getting the ball rolling now could be hugely valuable as we head towards the end of this year in the fourth quarter. I mean, in the ad industry in the US, for example, Forrester just announced on Thursday, they estimate 52,000 job losses between now and March 2021. So, you know, the the whole employment crisis is not over. And therefore, to try and understand what will be driving your guests to come and stay with you, the more information you have, I think would be beneficial to everybody.
Which brings me to my million-dollar question, which I'll throw open. What is your estimate? When do you expect the market to pick up again? I know it's very hard to say anything at this stage, but what are your expectations like at this point, Bruno? I'll start with you.
I think it's difficult to put a date because it's going to be a very gradual recovery. So it's going to be step by step, and different markets will, recover at different steps, at different paces, and different hotels within these different markets will also recover at different paces. I think what we can say is probably domestic tourism will start first, and this will be especially true in larger countries where you have a bigger population base, so probably Saudi. Otherwise, the recovery will be very much reliant on how much the government can relax the regulations or the lockdown or anything like that. And then at a later stage, how easy it becomes to fly in, fly out of the countries.
But do you think, let's say the government says tomorrow that we relax the restrictions, is it going to be an instant pickup, or is it still going to be gradual?
I think it will still be gradual. Obviously, the government saying, okay, it's all clear, you can come, will help tremendously, but people can still be more or less confident about traveling. And maybe not everyone will be able to afford travel right now. I mean, some people have been taking cuts or anything like that, and this might impact the market as well.
Cyrus, you mentioned earlier that you have started welcoming guests. So what is it that you have seen, and looking at the recovery right now, what is your take on how is it going to go ahead, looking to the future?
Well, right now, ever since 2 weeks, we have been reoperating the hotel, and we see that the leisure market, the local instead of global is very domestic. Of course, it's Germany. It's a couple of course, more wealthy customers coming with their private jets. That is very rare. We need more of that, of course, Jacqueline. However, first of all, leisure, then business, and at the very end, we expect groups to be coming back, even though we are not in the group segment with my little luxury hotel here. However, that is the sequence which we would expect. We expect Middle East business for us here in Germany, especially in Doosseldorf, to be starting again to focus on traveling to Germany. And Jackie said that we pretty well went through this critical stadium of the 9 weeks of lockdown, because we managed to keep the figures down, and that gives our perspective a pretty positive signal. So we expect mid of August or September, a very late GCC season for us as well, because at a certain point and stage, if the restrictions are not there anymore, that they can travel to Germany. They would rather go to Germany than to France, than to Great Britain. I expect that, because we have seen in Germany by far the best experience in terms of how we defend COVID-19. And apart from that, as I said, it's segment by segment, and the local versus global, the leisure prior the business, and then at the end the group business.
I think we're almost out of time. We just have 5 minutes for the Q&A. But before and there are a couple of questions as well that have come in, but before we go to that, probably just like a one-liner from each of you about what is your outlook for the future? When, how are things going to be post-COVID as well? We've kind of gotten a glimpse into that during the discussion, but just like a quick last one line from each of you. So Kevork, I'll start with you.
Yes, very much. I'm a believer that life is not changing. So when I hear the statement that life is not going to be the same after COVID, I am not really sure about that statement. I think life will be a bit different. There will be something that we need to be ready for. One of those is basically that business will only grow gradually. But I'm very confident that we will come back to the golden days. There's nothing stopping us from going there. It's just a matter of time. In the short term, I would say assume the worst and prepare yourself for the ideal. Meaning, if we're looking at a golden, $1 million question, when is things coming up?
Yeah.
I would assume you're getting the first batch of it in September and gradually seeing yourself growing it, and be prepared for that rather than go to the assumption that in 3 months we're going to go back to the good old days.
Perfect. Bruno?
Yeah, I think we still have some difficult months or weeks or months ahead, but overall we've probably hit the bottom, and it's probably a good time for industry players as well to reflect on the way they operate in this industry. I think it's time to rethink about training and all of these items that Kevork and David mentioned. So I think, let's do the most of this this sad time for the industry and try to get something good out of it.
Jacqueline?
I think certainly it's just staying positive, looking up. I think we've all got to look at the consumer. I think it's about experiences. It's giving value, because many people, whatever now, they're more akin to what has happened. So I think I hate using the word price, there's value, experiences, and being able to ensure that you hold true to your brand and your value and offer the best you can. And at the end of the day, people are like, we want to come back and experience something. We want to forget what we've had, and we want something new and different. So it's creating something, giving it the added value, but ensuring you stay within the framework of, we've all heard about the safety and hygiene and everything else.
Thanks, David.
I would just say keep on trucking. We are involved in not the oldest, the second oldest industry in the world. The oldest I can't discuss on a forum like this, but the second oldest industry in the world. We've been around for a very long time. We've seen an awful lot of changes, but hotels, hospitality is not going anywhere. This is just another blip in the road.
Cyrus, to follow up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a lot of things are already said, but I would say there's 3 main things we all need when we travel. And first of all, our service and our experience need to be defect-free. So we have to adjust now with security and hygiene and everything. So defect-free. Second is timely. When we go out to buy some bread, we see that we have to row up for, 25 minutes because, you have the 150. And so for us in our hotels, either they're small or big, we have to provide a timely service. And at the end, we have to provide a warm and caring service. So one service which really has the interest of reading the customer and proactively going ahead to really deliver meaningful experiences. So that is the future outlook on one hand. And certainly on the other hand, we have to adapt new models and concepts for our industry according to the new sense of traveling and the new expectations we're having. But as long as we focus and really stay in close touch with our customer, and I think we'll be on track.
Michael?
Well, I don't think we've ever seen anything like COVID-19. And there's so many factors in play, as the distinguished panelists have articulated. My thoughts would be to make sure everybody's minimizing guesswork. And that would lead me to say, let's open the door to consider commissioning some kind of syndicated research that could advance the benefits of the rebound to all of you in the hotel industry, wherever you are, but particularly, clearly, Germany and the UAE. This is a very good time to get the state-of-the-art reinventing research, get those insights quickly, and get them in a manner that they can be revisited, so we can continue to track consumer insights well into the new year.
Great. So now the floor is open for questions. So anybody, if you have any questions that you would like to address to the panel, feel free to raise your hand and I'll unmute you. But before we get to that, there are 3 questions here actually that have come in. First one, how likely and in what capacity are hotels going to take on external upsells, training and consulting services in the year 2020? Kevork, David, anyone?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure that we are going to reach out for such service at this point in time. We have our own structured approach for any upsell services that we do. Plus, we are already working currently, and we have been working with such service providers in the past. So, is it likely that we're going to change those or change our current existing systems? No, I don't think that is something we at this point are going to approach.
David?
I would strongly suggest that if you are one of these third-party providers and you have had a very successful and a meaningful relationship with a hotel in the past, then yes, they will use you again. If you are a third party and you don't have that relationship, I would be very surprised if hotels are going to come to you. And I speak from, we use a number. Some of them are exceptional, and we will go back to them as soon as we possibly can. We will not be looking for anybody else new in the meantime. Certainly not in the short term.
Second question is, how do you think marketing at this stage can be useful to promoting staying at hotels for nationals, as people are bored at their houses and are looking for any ways to get out? So how can you market right now? Jacqueline?
Well, I think anything, as we've mentioned before, I think at the end of the day is going back to, you know, your past clients. I think as well, social media is a very, very big influence in this region. So I think many of the hotel brands and hotels, not only within the GCC region, but globally, have been doing very proactive and effective experiential sales through social media, through databases that they have. And I think they just need to continue. I mean, they never stopped during COVID. So now we're coming out of it, they're probably going to accelerate a little bit more. So people have been very creative in some of them, and it's talking to your customers, it's keeping in touch, whether it's through Zoom or webinars or picking up a good old telephone again and having a conversation with somebody. It's doing things like that. So my suggestion is you don't stop. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to go out and physically put it, you know, spend, but they're spending in different ways. So marketing to me at this present time is certainly doing it through creative ways. There's different platforms, whether it's on social media or your press releases, magazines are still going. Being creative, I think the biggest thing is communication and engagement.
Next question is, you mentioned before that tourism might recover before corporate travel. How do you estimate the recovery of the oil and energy corporate travel in particular? Bruno, do you want to take that on?
It's not $1 million question, but it will depend on how much of a recovery we see in oil prices. I mean, it has been going up slightly over the last few weeks, so that's a good sign, but very difficult to say how long it's going to take. But if the oil prices remain low, then the oil sector will not be very dynamic in terms of travel demand, unfortunately.
Well, maybe I can just also contribute to that. If we're talking about the travel factor of that particular segment, actually, in our hotels, we already see in these destinations where oil and gas is a major factor and player. We see a big spike in the demand on the number of rooms. Abu Dhabi, to start with, we've got hotels. I do have a property, which is a giant size property that is running at 100% occupancy today.
So now you're seeing a spike now already?
Yes, but again, that spike has nothing to do with leisure business. That spike is happening specifically due to the oil and gas demand on rooms. So,
wow. So there is demand right now from oil and gas.
We already see people flying in, and many of those are so basically this is their first step coming into the city, where they are housed in a hotel for a couple of weeks before they move to their accommodation. So that is seen for us in Saudi. We have seen that, and we have seen that in Abu Dhabi definitely.
Okay, interesting. I think I saw a related question. Okay, I'll take this one from Ravi. Do you see the finishes of the designs changing within hotels moving forward as budgets will be cut?
Yes, but not only with the factor related to budget. We learned a lot during the COVID period. We have a lot of our properties are already running at 100% occupancy since March. And that is only because we had a relationship with the related authorities, and all medical teams are being housed in many of our hotels, like other brands. Now, we learned from those medical teams. We learned through the process when they took over the buildings, what were they looking for? And there were buildings they declined. And I think that learning is bringing us now to the discussion about design. Today, we had to remove furniture from those rooms, specific furniture from those rooms that have specific material. Now, if I'm designing my next room for the brand, I will take that into consideration, and I will make sure that I don't have that material that made me dismantle a lot of furniture to take it out of my room. And also to be able to provide an environment that I can clean and can be approved as being an environment which is ready to be cleaned. So definitely we're looking at design factors today because of COVID.
Then there's another question from Claudia. What do you think the trends will be with regards to outsourcing staff as a flexible manpower business model solution? Anybody who's David?
In a mature market, then it is a flexible option. In most of the markets here, it is not a flexible resource here. We cannot, it doesn't work particularly well in this part of the world. And it's certainly not an option that I would look at here.
Kevork agrees. I can see him nodding vigorously.
We've been walking away from it. We've been working very hard to walk away from that option over the past few years. We were successful. And coming back to maybe one of the points I raised initially, and that is the pool of talent you have in your employment. If you've got those doing what they can actually do and work at the efficiencies they can work with and the right output, you wouldn't really need to plug in any kind of casual staff recruit. Talking about like going back to Jacqueline, if you're maintaining your brand and your brand standards and relating it to Cyrus's point about quality and service, you cannot just be implying somebody of, I don't know, you don't even know where they sleep even, you don't know the environment they come from, and you put that person in your guest room. So it's an option that we've been walking away from. But I think with COVID, we learned more. Now with COVID, I think it's the opposite. It's not that we are reluctant to hire staff, so we go more with casuals. It's the opposite. We want to have staff that are indispensable. This industry has a problem. Everybody is dispensable. That's how I lived in the career since I was a student in the hotel industry. That has to change for this industry. So if I have enough staff who do the job and they are all critically needed for the organization, there's no layoffs. And there's no need for a third-party organization to come in and give me their staff.
Then there's another question. What impact will tech have on drawing business going forward? Is there any new technologies being implemented, especially service robots in hotels? So
can I answer that, please?
Yeah, please.
If anybody doesn't mind. The robots in hotels is becoming a very tiresome topic. And also, I have the good fortune that I've been at work throughout this. I feel very sorry for people who've been locked down and have gone through the unending tedium of video conferencing calls and people trying to work from home, and that becoming a more professional answer to things. Of course, it's helped and it's been a means to an end. The technological side of it is not, as soon as lockdown and guidelines are lifted, I really don't believe it's going to have a big difference in what we do.
But don't you think AI is going to play a big role? I mean, is that something the hospitality industry has to pick up during this crisis? Is that a lesson probably to turn more towards technology?
Until it becomes cost effective, then no, and it's nowhere near being cost effective. It's a ludicrous amount of money. So if I would like to recruit a robot to serve somebody, I could recruit 100 people for 2 years that it would that they would take me for the robot, the same amount of money, that's the equivalent at present. If you saw the article in South Korea where you have a robotic barista serving you, it's $280,000 that it costs for that. So I think we're quite a bit off.
But you do have cost-effective solutions as well. You brought in the most expensive barista, but you do have the more cost-efficient. At least that's a big argument that's there, that adopting technology will improve efficiencies.
Adopting technology has proved efficiencies across every single industry in the world, but nobody can definitively say that it's going to have an impact on travel and tourism. And if it is going to have an impact, as to what extent that impact is going to be in the next 6, 18, 24, 36 months. Nobody knows an answer to that at all. And my personal suggestion is it will not be a significant impact within that period of time.
Interestingly, I have a lot of questions. Will technology play a major role in innovating the industry, offering, and the guest experience? Another question on what will technology solve? Another question on, do you think upgrading operational facilities to include AI will be important? Bruno, what is your take on this? Do you think as an industry, from an industry perspective, is technology going to play a critical role or not so much?
I think yes, but I don't think it's linked to COVID-19 especially. I think it was already a trend that was appearing, and it's something that a lot of companies are pushing for. I don't think it's because of COVID-19 that we see the more technology. And as David mentioned, we see a lot of the fancy technology stuff. That's not what's going to save the world. When you think of technology, it's more for the back of house to make some operation efficient, more efficient, to save on energy, for instance, or anything like that. It's not, putting a robot who's going to bring you room service. I don't think that will revolutionize the industry. It's more of a marketing push, I think, those little robots. But I do think that there are a lot of opportunities to improve the impact of technology in the industry, more for on the operational side of things. Yeah, I do think so.
You shouldn't forget that humans are social animals, and we require social interaction. So that doesn't work with a robot. But of course, I'm totally on the same page with Bruno. There will be a lot of new technologies for us, but not in terms of service again. I think luxury and service, which we all stand for in this group, will not be replaced with robots. Maybe to a certain extent, and some kind of other budget segments, but not in our segment. It's not going to happen.
There's a question from Avinash that says, how confident is this panel on the return of business travel just within the GCC, given the rise of video conferencing platforms? That's something that a lot of us have been exposed to during the COVID crisis. So I see a lot of smiles.
It's unbelievable that the video conferencing will not sort it out. I used to travel a lot to Saudi because of the nature of the number of hotels we have. And every time, if you travel Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whichever day it is, and you travel back, I used to be on a plane with almost 90% people in black and dark blue suits. Yeah, and both ways.
Right.
So there is a need for that human element to be doing a job there. That's why he was traveling. If it could have been done online, it could have been done. But that's an employee who's flying to do a job, and he's flying back to home in this case. So I think we're very confident that will always be there. The video conferencing will definitely solve things. And maybe we were chatting earlier. Today, my experience was to meet my GMs was regulated with scheduled flights and scheduled dates when I could afford to have the time to go to certain destinations and meet the GMs on one-on-one. Today, I see them more than in frequency, more than ever, at least once or twice a month, I talk to them through the system. Is that going to stop my scheduled flight? No, it won't. I will still have to make that flight because I need to see the product, I need to see the owner, I need to see so I don't see it really bringing the travel need much lower than what was. It might have an impact, but minor.
I just want to second on that and just say that exactly what Kevork has said. This region, we're social. We do a lot of our activities, things on a social element. So I think that as much as Zoom is great for one, we still like to see and to conduct business in front of someone. And as Cyrus says as well, we're social animals. We like to sit and see and have a conversation, look at the face, see the reaction. So I think it's a balance, but I think in this region, we're very, very much, a lot of our meetings, activities are done on a social environment in some way.
There's another question on how are hospitality brands going to talk to and engage with customers post-COVID? Is there a strategy? Will they invest more in marketing, etc.? Okay, that's a silence, pin drop silence.
I think, to be fair, I think we've already covered that in some detail.
I know. So, I mean, do you think that there's going to be increased investment in marketing, or is it like Jacqueline mentioned in the past, is it just smart marketing? Will there be investment in marketing?
I think we will have to look at it not from the perspective of is it going to be a bigger budget to spend, or how do we direct that budget? You see, we have not been talking enough directly to our customers over the past decade as hoteliers. Third-party service providers and intermediaries have been talking to them more than we talk to them. And that's why we were losing a big chunk of our business edge from direct coming to us, because people trust us as brands and even know the GM of the hotel. Good old days, they used to call me. I used to be the GM. I'm their friend. They call me. I book the room. So that whole thing is, we lost that to third-party intermediaries. I think this is a big opportunity now, that there is a window in the mindset of the client, where the client wants that safety level and he wants a confidence in the space, in the place. So if we are reaching out today more on digital marketing, we can reach masses. If we can reach out to certain market segments that we are after through the right marketing platforms, to starting with them and talking to them better than we were doing before, yes, I would spend every penny on that. That is the way forward.
I think we'll just take, there's more questions coming in, but I'll just take one more from Cyrus. How easy is it to reduce workforce now and then suddenly ramp up if the business does pick up quickly from September?
Well, here in Germany, I can tell you we are currently every day balancing the demand with a short time work, and that is a very difficult thing, because you know, when you have an occupancy level of 10 to 15%, you tend to leave your employees at home, because the subsidies of the government are 60 to 67 with kids, and now 70, respectively 77%. So I expect that this is the major thing we have to carry and balance out every day. But what was the question again? Sorry, I lost it.
So the question was that if you have workforce coming in, how quickly can you, if you lay off people, how quickly can you ramp up your workforce again? Let's say there's increased demand.
Yeah, well, we can see, first of all, the forecast and can manage to plan accordingly. But we're not getting an immediate stream in of business. But then, certainly having your employees in short term, you can pull them in right away. If you have layoffs, that's a different factor, of course. But there is one positive thing about that, that the market will be filled up with talents again here and there, and then you would have it much easier to pick the right talents for your respective hotel or company, because prior COVID-19 it was a challenge to find the right fit for several positions, and that will most probably not be there anymore. So that is one advantage in these crazy times.
David, anything? I saw you smiling. Anything you wanted to add?
No, nothing else.
Okay. Michael, one last question for you, and I think then we'll wrap up. We've already gone 20 minutes over, but it's been a really interesting discussion. Michael, the question is, Michael mentioned there will be a new analytical approach. What kind of customer data or behaviors are you looking into to make decisions? Have there already been any key findings?
Well, we haven't done the research yet. That's what we'd like to, get off the ground. But some of the structure of it would be, a requirement would be to get some direction from the hospitality industry itself. We can't just go and commission it. But the sort of information we can get covers the customer journey, brand health, reputation tracking, understand the sentiments of where people are right now in different parts of the world, and understand what the competition is. The competition may not be another hotel, as I mentioned earlier. It could be paying the school fees. There's a lot of factors, but I think that we could pull this together very quickly. And it's not a static journey. This will track sentiment as it evolves over time. And I think it would be a very worthwhile program to instigate.
And with that, I think we've covered most of the questions. Thank you so much to all our panelists, to everybody who's been attending the session as well for taking the time out. We hope you enjoyed the session, found it very beneficial. You'll be able to access the webinar on our website, govbusiness.com. Do let us know all your feedback and comments, and share any topics that you would like us to cover as well. Thank you and have a great evening. Thank you all once again very much.
Well done, well moderated.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.